And now I would like to welcome Professor Tichavský, who is connecting from Mexico and works in a field which will be described by my friends.
Máte data? Máte. Tak prosím.
So, first of all, allow me to thank Professor Vinica for describing her nice journey and sharing with us her good news. So now joining us online from Mexico is Professor Radko Tichavský, one of the world's leading authorities in agriculture holohomeopathy. He created the holohomeopathics method, applying homeopathic principles for farming, founded an institute for sustainable holistic education, and serves as its academic director. Widely published, he lectures internationally and advises agricultural projects worldwide. Mr. Tichavský, can you hear us, please?
Ano.
Okay, is everything okay on our side? So, pane profesore, vítáme vás v Praze. So, welcome in Prague, Professor Tichavský. So, you can take it from here. We are connected.
Děkuji mnohokrát.
Thank you very much. I would like to greet you from Mexico. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear friends, it's a great honor and at the same time a responsibility for me to accept the invitation of Tomáš Pfeiffer to this Congress, whose central theme is health. When we say health, most people usually think of human health, the body, the mind, disease prevention, medicine. But today I would like to speak about health in a much broader sense, about the health of plants, the landscape, and also the health of our own soul. Because these three areas are not separate. They are interconnected like circles on water. Touch one, and all begin to ripple. My personal journey towards homeopathy started on the 27th of May 1977. At that time, we used to use standard trains, and it was thanks to contact with Professor František Kahuda, who headed the psychotronic laboratory at Charles University. And I sent him my first scientific work, an experimental study on conditioned reflexes in plants, measuring their reactions through ECG. Even gaining access to ECG equipment for plant research was already a major challenge at that time. I did not start in academic libraries, but directly with experiments on plants and human psychology. Based on these experiments, I began to perceive that a plant is not just a green object. When approached with aggression or respect, it responds. Plants may be mute, but they are by no means indifferent to their environment, which of course includes us. Let me give you an example, the example of Mexican Indians who collect hallucinogenic cactuses, and first they pray and make an agreement with the cactus, a personal agreement. It's a kind of a human approach, but if I aggressively cut it from the soil or scratched it, that cactus, which normally produces mescaline, and within a few minutes or hours, depending on what kind of aggression would be led towards it, this cactus creates more than 50 alkaloids, which are even more aggressive towards human health than escalin. So the fact that we should pray to the cactus and treat it as if it was my own baby, that I must never cause any harm to it, it has a metabolic weak foundation, or when we go for a walk in a park and smell a rose, then a lot of people believe that it smells for everyone, but it has been proven that that rose can distinguish from individual metabolic profiles of specific humans, and it can smell different for one person and different for somebody else. And it may stop smelling nice completely within a few minutes. Later, during my scientific work, I started dealing with graphs, because science gives us a possibility to measure, repeat, demonstrate. But at the moment, I realized that if we view organisms through statistics and figures, we miss something very important. For example, a plant is not a mere photosynthetic machine, but it's a live organism whose health cannot be explained with a quotation. It is one part of a complex system, which I later titled Holon. After my emigration to Mexico, I took my interest in homeopathy. What fascinated me about it was its ability to work with subtlety. Science often looks for a clear, strong signal, a ponderable dose with measurable effects. And it shows that even a weak, the smallest impulse can awaken a great, let us say, avalanche-like response. A lot of people view it with skepticism, and I understand that skepticism is a natural defense of science, protecting its ground against superstition. But what if instead of building a defensive wall, we tried to build a bridge? Human homeopathy still struggles with criticism, but its effect is nothing more than placebo. That's what they claim. However, in plant experiments, it is much more difficult, depending on the homeopathic remedies applied. And this could be said not just about plants, but also about other areas. For example, coffee in homeopathic remedy can be used to control snails. It can kill a snail within a few hours. And here my main message comes. Science keeps evolving, broadening its horizons. What today is considered firmly established may indicates be overcome, transcended. That's why it's important not to close the door on ideas that at first glance appear to lie outside the current paradigm. Today, we increasingly speak of holistic approaches, perspectives that do view phenomena as isolated parts of the system, but as interconnected wholes. Where classical mechanics saw separate components, the holistic approach looks for interconnections, relations, and flows of energy and information. And here is space opening for a dialogue. A plant is not just a biochemical factory, but a living organism interconnected with soil, climate, microorganisms, and humans. Likewise, human health is not merely a sum of organs, but a whole that includes body, mind, emotions, and environment. In that sense, the boundaries between so-called hard science and approaches labeled as unscientific are not rigid walls, but gates that can gradually be opened, and that's the mission of this Congress. We should use our ratio, we should use our emotions, and we should apply a holistic approach. Classical science is like a microscope that magnifies detail. So-called non-science is often like a telescope. It shows us the whole, not only physical, but also psychological wholeness of the living organisms that together form the whole. In agriculture, this means, for example, if I want healthy plants, I can apply mineral fertilizers and pesticides, and I will get quick results. But at the same time, I deplete the soil, reduce biodiversity, and destroy microbial life, which may completely ruin life in soil and its quality and its fertility. If I combine scientific knowledge with a homeopathic approach, I can strengthen soil and plants differently. These chemical inputs send subtle signals that support plants' own resilience and development. This is not mysticism, it's another way of working with complex systems, with the metabolism of diverse organisms that form part of the whole micro, meso, and macroorganisms. These include not only plants, fungi, bacteria or viruses, but also animals and humans who are part of the whole and who transform it positively or negatively by their agricultural practices. This directly affects not only productivity, but also the long-term sustainability of agriculture and, indeed, of human life on Earth itself. The same is true for people. Scientific medicine gives us tools that save lives, antibiotics, surgery, diagnostics. Yet more and more people feel that health also means something else, balance, harmony, a sense of life's meaning. Anyone who cares for plants knows that a plant under constant stress will be more prone to disease, and it is the same with humans. Here, science and also so-called non-science can mean. Science studies and shows us how immunity works, but holistic systems remind us that immunity is not just a collection of cells, but also part of new genesis and sociogenesis. That includes our life story, our relationships, and our philosophical foundation, and our coexistence not only with other people, but with all living organisms. Today, the ecological and social dimensions have even deeper significance. Climate crisis, population, depletion of resources, all these threaten the health of both people and plants. We cannot rely only on technical solutions. We need a change of perspective, one that involves not only new technologies, but also new consciousness, the ability to perceive connections and the courage to transform our behavior and our relationship to living organisms. We need a change that unites scientific knowledge with wisdom, a change that leads us towards reverence for life in all its forms. Together, we can then offer a path to sustainable health that is not only about survival, but about the quality of life. Allow me to conclude with a personal confession. I'm often asked, do you believe in homeopathy? My answer is, for me, it is not a matter of belief, but of experience. I see how plants actively respond to homeopathic applications, not only in a laboratory, petri dishes, but on a larger scale. I see how people change when they are offered the chance to understand that we are not merely owners of land, but part of the whole. In other words, we are not simply miners or extractors of the soil's wealth. I don't want science to retreat. On the contrary, I want it to grow in breadth not only in height. To not fear dialogue with what was once rejected. For health, whether human, plant, or planetary, is the result of balance. It is balance between what we can measure and what we can not measure. We can only feel it. Between what is visible and what is hidden, and yet still shapes our world. Health is partly work of dialogue between human and nature, between individual and community, between present and future. Dear friends, I wish for all of us that this Congress may not only be a collection of lectures, but a true meeting of people, unafraid to think differently, who have the courage to ask questions intelligently and build bridges where others see only walls. If we succeed in this, then this Congress will not only be about health, but it will itself become an act of healing. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish all of us inspiring and fruitful days.
Professor Tichavský, we are grateful for your wonderful contribution. I hope you stay with us till the end of this session. Thank you.
Rád bych vyslovil osobní poděkování za krásná slova.
I would like to say thank you and to appreciate highly for those beautiful words which mean the program for the future.